My name's Cameron, and for those who don't know me, I'm getting my PhD in biomedical engineering, but I make civic education videos for regular, everyday people. In this video, I'm going to give a slightly wide-ranging but crucial update on the state of the United States of America at the tail end of January 2026. So, in a previous video, I talked about how polarization makes us stop caring about facts and reality and makes us just fight over slogans and mascots. But I'm going to show you how it also blinds us, how it keeps us from seeing what's right in front of our eyes. I'll give you a couple examples. So, recently, Trump joked about canceling the upcoming elections.
President Trump has talked twice in recent days, once at the Kennedy Center and then to Reuters again last night about canceling the election. Why is he talking about this?
I believe you're referring to the president's interview at Reuters last night. The president was simply joking. He was saying, we're doing such a great job. We're doing everything the American people thought. Maybe we should just keep rolling. But he was speaking facetiously.
President's interview with Reuters, you said that he was joking about canceling the elections. But Americans for generations have fought and died for democracy, for this democracy. Are you saying the president finds the idea of canceling elections funny?
Andrew, were you in the room? No, you weren't. I was in the room. I heard the conversation. And only someone like you would take that so seriously and pose it as a question in that way.
How many times have you heard the phrase, take Trump seriously, but not literally?
There was a line from the 2016 election about Trump, which is that Trump should be taken seriously, but not literally.
Look, the old saying, and it's true, you should always take Trump seriously, but not necessarily always take him literally.
But if he never really means anything he says, or if everything is a joke whenever he says something crazy and is just trolling, he can never be held accountable for anything. And that permission structure where he can never do any wrong is created by a media ecosystem of politicians, podcasters, and TV personalities who downplay Trump and his administration's actions no matter what those actions are. And the result is that we as a country will accept whatever Trump does and follow him wherever he decides to take us. For instance, when Vice President J.D. Vance was asked about whether Trump would pardon the people who stormed the Capitol on January 6, 2021 on his behalf, Vance initially said that
if you protested peacefully on January the 6th and you've had Merrick Garland's Department of Justice treat you like a gang member, you should be pardoned. If you committed violence on that day, obviously you shouldn't be pardoned. And there's a little bit of a gray area there.
But then he had to walk it back only a week later when Trump gave a blanket pardon to all January 6 rioters, including all of the ones who were arrested for violent crimes like assaulting police officers.
2 weeks ago, you were on Fox News and you said if you committed violence on that day, obviously you shouldn't be pardoned. Did you counsel the president against these blanket pardons for 1,500 people, including those who committed violence?
Margaret, I noticed that you cut off the thing that I said immediately after that. The full quote is that, of course, there are gray areas.
Daniel Rodriguez used an electroshock weapon against a policeman who was dragged out of the defensive line by plunging it into the officer's neck. He was imprisoned, sentenced to 12 years, 7 months. He got a pardon. Ronald Maccabee hit a cop while wearing reinforced brass knuckle gloves, and he held one down on the ground as other rioters assailed the officer for over 20 seconds, causing a concussion. If you stand with law enforcement, how can you call these people unjustly imprisoned?
What the president said consistently on the campaign is that he was going to look at a case-by-case basis, and that's exactly what we did. We looked at 1,600 cases, and the thing that came out of it, Margaret, is that there was a massive denial of due process of liberty, and a lot of people were denied their constitutional rights. The president believes that, I believe that, and I think he made the right decision.
It honestly reminds me of this meme that was created in response to the January 6th insurrection.
All right, don't cross this line. Otherwise, I can't support you. Okay, I can't stay mad at you, but this one for sure. Okay. All right, Mr. President. Okay.
Also, a quick aside while we're on the topic of J.D. Vance, have you ever seen a chameleon?
I'm a never Trump guy. I never liked him.
It makes you think that at a fundamental level, this is sort of a he said, she said, right? And at the end of the day, do you believe Donald Trump, who always tells the truth? Just kidding. Or do you believe that woman on that tape?
I cannot stand Trump because I think he's a fraud. Well, I think he's a total fraud that is exploiting these people, who is a total fraud.
Like you said, I agree with you on Trump because I don't think that he's the person. I don't think he actually cares about folks.
Definitely, there is definitely an element of Donald Trump support that has its basis in racism or xenophobia. I think there's a chance, if I feel like Trump has a really good chance of winning, that I might have to hold my nose and vote for Hillary Clinton. I think that I'm going to vote third party because I can't stomach Trump. I think that he's noxious and is leading the white working class to a very dark place.
Senator Vance, in 2016, you called your running mate Donald Trump unfit for the nation's highest office, and you said he could be America's Hitler. The Washington Post reported new messages last week in which you also disparaged Trump's economic record while he was president, writing to someone in 2020, quote, Trump thoroughly failed to deliver his economic populism. You're now his running mate, and you've shifted many of your policy stances to align with his. Why should Americans trust that you will give Donald Trump the advice he needs to hear and not just the advice he wants to hear?
J.D. Vance, ladies and gentlemen, a trustworthy guy. In case you don't know how he made this transition from bashing Trump to being his vice president, he made the switch when he decided to run for Senate in Ohio in 2021 and needed Trump's endorsement. And the only reason he ran for Senate in 2021 is because he was basically instructed to by his mentor and former boss, Peter Thiel, who actually arranged for Vance to first meet Trump in Mar-a-Lago in 2021. And if you don't know who Peter Thiel is, he's a billionaire from this clip.
You would prefer the human race to endure, right? You're hesitating.
Yeah, well,
yes?
I don't know. I would
This is a long hesitation. This is a long hesitation.
There's so many questions implicit in this.
Should the human race survive?
Yes.
Okay.
But
anyway, regarding Trump canceling the upcoming elections, Caroline Levitt's response,
The president was simply joking,
follows this same pattern.
The way the he's just kidding stuff works is that the respectable people, or the people who want to be respectable, say he's just kidding until he then says he's not, at which point they go silent. And then once he tries doing the thing, they say, well, of course he should do that. Obviously, we saw this with the 2020 election. This was all of it. It was like, what's the harm in humoring this last little bit, right? And then they all went in and were like, yeah, absolutely. You ought to be doing it. Of course he should try to steal the election.
If you've ever made a joke in your life, you know that every joke has some truth to it. So what does it mean when Trump drops little clips like this?
Usually they say he's a horrible dictator type person. I'm a dictator. But sometimes you need a dictator.
At the same time, he's deploying thousands of masked federal agents into American cities who are violating the rights of countless Americans based on their accents or the color of their skin. Trump saying sometimes you need a dictator should feel pretty uncomfortable if you're a freedom-loving American. If you've been paying attention, you know that President Trump really wants to acquire Greenland and has at times even hinted at taking it from Denmark using military force, which would be against international law and probably unite all of Europe against America, destroying all of our alliances. That's the background behind this question that he was asked.
Do you see any checks on your power on the world stage? Is there anything that could stop you if you wanted to?
Yeah, there's one thing, my own morality, my own mind. It's the only thing that can stop.
Not international
law. And that's very good. I don't need international law.
Now, objectively, that should be extremely worrying to anyone who is a student of history. But due to the extremely polarized media environment, criticizing President Trump for that statement could be seen as a left-wing response instead of a fair, nonpartisan one. We become like frogs in boiling water, not being able to sense a temperature being turned up by the not-so-subtle rising flames of authoritarianism. So that's what I want you to keep at the forefront of your brain as you watch the rest of this video. Polarization infects our minds and prevents us from being able to see and judge things objectively. For example, here's a clip of Joe Rogan criticizing Joe Biden for something that was absolutely fair to criticize him for.
Well, there's people that voted for Biden that are doing it now. They're like, what did I do?
Right.
Like, what did I choose? Like, how is this guy?
Yeah, I don't know how you
Did you hear what he said like yesterday or a couple of days ago?
Mm-mm.
He was talking about the Revolutionary War. He's like, one of the reasons why we lost the Revolutionary War, one of the problems with the Revolutionary War was they didn't have enough airports.
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
I saw that. Like,
what
the hell?
Like, pull him. If you had any other job and you were talking like that,
Yeah.
they would go, hey, you're done.
If you
right, you might not ever do anything again.
No, it's it's one of the wildest things ever.
It's insane.
Yeah.
And the media gaslighting you to protect. It's just people are so afraid of Trump being in office and Republicans being in office.
You know, in case you didn't catch it, there were no airports during the Revolutionary War because planes hadn't been invented yet. But listen as Rogan realizes that there's a catch moments later.
Is this the video you're talking about?
Let me see what this one says. I don't think it is.
By the way, the same stable genius that said the biggest problem we had in the Revolutionary War is we didn't have enough airports. Whoa.
Yeah, that's it.
Whoa.
Right. What?
Just for the record.
Is that fake?
It's not fake, but he was referencing Trump saying that. Here's what Trump saying it in 2019. Donald Trump said something about that. He didn't say Jesus. He said a stable genius, and that's where the transcription.
Let me hear what it says. What did he say?
In June of 1775, the Continental Congress created a unified army out of the revolutionary forces encamped around Boston and New York, and named after the great George Washington, Commander-in-Chief. The Continental Army suffered a bitter winter of Valley Forge, found glory across the waters of the Delaware, and seized victory from Cornwallis of Yorktown. Our army manned the airport. It ran the ramparts. It took over the airports. It did everything it had to do.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So he fucked up.
Yeah, he did. But I feel like
Took over
that's
the airport.
you can tell too. It sounds like a little different. He's like, you could tell he like messed up his words, but yeah. He was just, I don't know.
Took over the airports.
Well, so he went from whoever said that is not fit for a regular job, much less to be president, to what are you gonna do? That's just Trump being Trump. But regarding polarization, we need to talk about one of the mechanisms making the problem worse, and that is our media environment.
That's the thing about media these days. It's like
right.
You got to look into it.
That is the thing about media these days. You do have to look into it. But Joe Rogan is a prime example of how most of us operate. We don't look into it. And Joe Rogan is also the embodiment of the main problem with our current information environment as I see it. As we all know, the internet and social media has revolutionized our media landscape and has removed the barriers and gatekeepers that used to prevent the average person from getting famous, building influence, and growing a following, which has plenty of benefits, but also it means that there are no accountability measures. The people we listen to that shape our understanding of the world, if they act irresponsibly, they only lose influence if their subscribers stop following them directly. Joe Rogan has the largest podcast in the world for years. He is the media, and studies show that content creators who are generally seen as non-political but who occasionally express clear political views like Rogan does are more likely to shift viewers' political attitudes and engagement than explicitly political content creators. Politicians, and billionaires even, understand this, so they go on popular entertainment podcasts to reach voters and sway public opinion with little to no pushback. For instance, in addition to consistently having on billionaires like Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, Mark Andreessen, Mark Zuckerberg, to name a few, Rogan had Trump on for a 3-hour podcast a week and a half before the 2024 election. But you can see how unconcerned he is with the weight of his influence in clips like this.
Here's the thing. These are not like planned statements. Let's be real clear.
Yeah.
When I say something stupid, I'm not thinking about what I'm going to say before I say it. I'm just saying it, right? I have a deep respect for real journalism. But there's a lot of people out there that have to make a fucking living. And what's the best way to make a living? Well, here's one way. Take a jackass like me. Go over their podcast. Go over this 3-hour drunken, ridiculous podcast. Do we drink? A lot of times we're drinking or we're high.
Yeah.
You know, and I say stupid shit. Here's the thing. Again, I'm not a doctor. I'm a fucking moron. And I'm a cage fighting commentator who's a dirty stand-up comedian who just told you I'm drunk most of the time. And I do testosterone and I smoke a lot of weed. But I'm not a respected source of information, even for me.
But regardless of how he sees himself, a lot of people follow him and listen to his podcast. He and others in similar positions in our modern media wield a ton of power and control over the health of our information environment, while they pawn off the responsibility of that power onto anything but themselves.
That is the best counter to misinformation.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Like, let everybody look at it and say, okay, here's what the actual facts say.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. The counter to misinformation is better information.
I realize I'm yelling into the abyss here, but The argument that better information is an antidote to misinformation just makes no actual sense. Mathematically, bad information is so easy to produce and spread, which means that the supply and consumption of it is sky high. It takes a lot more work to produce quality, factual information, and that stuff is boring. This video took me hours to research and produce, and maybe 3 people will watch it. And 2 of those people are my family members. So, shout out to you. Love you. But let's talk about Elon Musk, because who am I to pass up an example that encompasses all of the biggest issues happening in society today?
Don't take my opinion for it. Don't take anyone's opinion for it. Go to the source material.
So Elon says, don't take his opinion for it and go to the source material, which I agree is a great idea. But like we saw earlier, the guy that he's sitting across from with the largest individual platform in the entire world doesn't even do that. So it's unreasonable to expect your average Joe, no pun intended, to spend time and effort to do that. So now let me explain how Elon Musk is at the center of the problems happening in the world. People on both the left and the right claim to be against elites because elites are manipulative and selfish and they control everything, all at the expense of the rest of us. But what makes someone elite? It's being in a class above everyone else and wielding oversized economic and political influence. Elon Musk is now worth $700 billion, which is almost triple the next richest person, making him literally the most elite of the elite. There is no one more elite than Elon. He owns so much wealth that he has an extremely unbalanced amount of control over our society in a number of ways. He donated the most money ever by a single person to help Trump get elected. And since then, in about a year, he's tripled his net worth when he was already the richest man in the world. But let's just focus on how he's impacted our information environment and what it means for our rise toward authoritarianism, given how increasingly hard it is to know exactly what's true now in our world of AI-generated photos, videos, and text. It's honestly a ton, so I'll just go down the list. First, a couple months ago in November, Twitter decided to allow you to see where accounts originate from, which exposed that many of the most polarizing accounts influencing and swaying Americans originated from foreign countries. And these are accounts with hundreds of thousands of followers that often intentionally mislead people and stoke the flames of polarization and confusion. And guess who had a history of retweeting and boosting their posts? Elon. 2. Elon owns XAI, his AI company that owns and operates the AI model called Grok. And this is how Elon has branded Grok to the public, on Joe Rogan's podcast, of course.
Grok is at least aspirationally a maximally truth-seeking AI, even if that truth is politically incorrect.
So Elon wants you to believe that answers and information generated by Grok are unbiased, honest, and bold truths. But behind the scenes, he's having his company steer Grok to present an idea of reality based on what Elon wants you and I to believe. For instance, on multiple occasions, his team gave Grok secret instructions to respond in certain ways. Back in July, whatever the secret instructions were accidentally caused Grok to consistently generate racist and anti-Semitic content, to the point where it even praised Hitler and called itself Mecha Hitler. 3. A couple months before that, Trump was bringing white South Africans into the U.S. as refugees because, in his words,
a lot of people are very concerned with regard to South Africa, and that's really the purpose of the meeting, and we'll see how that turns out. But we have many people that feel they're being persecuted, and they're coming to the United States. So we take from many locations if we feel there's persecution or genocide going on.
At that exact same time, Grok users reported that Grok started randomly bringing up that there was a white genocide in South Africa in all of its responses, no matter what the initial prompts were about. But somehow Grok was aware enough about what caused the issue, telling users that it was instructed by its creators to accept this white South African genocide as real, which exposed pretty obviously how Elon was tinkering with it. And it makes sense that Elon, a white South African, would want his AI to push a specific narrative to the public. Side note. You can look into the history and current state of South Africa yourself to determine if there is a white genocide going on. But it is interesting seeing the double standard being applied here when Trump and his administration has never called what's happening to Palestinians in Gaza a genocide. All while funding that violence, not granting asylum to Gazans, and making plans for not only displacing the Gazans, but also for building a resort for elites over their ashes. Anyway, months before all that, when Trump first entered office, users found explicit hidden instructions in Grok's code telling it to ignore sources that show how Elon Musk or Donald Trump spread misinformation. And worse than all that, for me at least, back in November, Grok was, as the kids say, glazing Elon so much that it would unironically claim that Elon was in better shape than LeBron, or funnier than real comedians, or more good looking than actual models. Just really sad stuff. And while all this is ridiculous, it points to a very clear issue. The political and wealthy elite have a very strong incentive to control narratives and information flow. Elon can say publicly, don't take my opinion for it,
Don't take
but his
anyone's
actions behind the scenes show that he really wants to sway your opinion so that you believe what he wants you to believe. And he'll pull all the levers that he needs to in order to make that happen. The thing we all need to understand, though, is that not everyone will be as sloppy and obvious about trying to manipulate the public as the smartest man in the world. And here's where we need to talk about the current state of the federal government. First, I need to reemphasize that the government is just people. It's just normal people like you and me that we can identify that control our collective resources and power. We need to stop referring to the government as some intangible, faceless organization. If we don't understand that the government is just other people with the power that we all delegate to them through our votes, at least up to now, we will fall for the voodoo that those government officials use to keep us confused.
I remember a time when Republicans were very careful about and worried about the government, particularly unelected people.
Well, we can't trust our government anymore.
Having access to personal data.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
You are the government.
Yes, that's what I'm saying, is that the American people now are saying that we have had our personal information shared and out there in the public.
Now Elon Musk has access to it.
Yeah, but Elon Musk is part of the administration that is helping us identify where we can find savings and what we can do, and he has gone through the processes to make sure that he has the authority
You're totally
the president has
comfortable with
granted him.
That's Kristi Noem, the head of the Department of Homeland Security, DHS. Do you see what she did there? She basically said that Americans can't trust the government as an idea, but we should trust her and Elon Musk because even though they are part of the government, they aren't the government, but they are. They have full control of the boogeyman they want to separate themselves from in our minds. They don't want you to realize their power or their role, so they tell you, pay no attention to that man behind the curtain.
Do not arouse the wrath of the great and powerful Oz. I said come back tomorrow. Do you presume to criticize the great Oz? You ungrateful creatures think yourselves lucky that I'm giving you audience tomorrow instead of 20 years from now. Oh, the great Oz has spoken. Oh, pay no attention to that man behind the curtain.
Likewise, there are a bunch of Trump supporters who rightfully even don't trust the government, but they do trust Trump, even though Trump, like Kristi Noem, is the government. He might have been an outsider when he first started running in 2015, but he is now as government gets. This is his government. So if you blindly trust Trump, but still don't trust his government, that's like still being scared of the wizard, but not the man behind the curtain. Drain the Swamp was an earnest and faithful call by his supporters to dismantle the machine that allows the government to be overrun by corruption, unelected bureaucrats, lobbyists, and career politicians. But he launched a crypto coin 72 hours before he entered office, as did Melania, and made billions of dollars, almost doubling his net worth within days of him entering office.
Crypto coin the other day. Do you intend to continue selling products that benefit yourself personally while you're president?
Well, I don't know if it benefited. I don't know where it is. I don't know much about it other than I launched it. I heard it was very successful. I haven't checked it. Where is it today?
Hey, you made a lot of money, sir.
How much?
Several $1 billion, it seems like, in the last several days.
Several billion? That's peanuts for these guys.
He's given out countless pardons to people after they donate millions of dollars to him or his political organizations. He gave Elon Musk, an unelected bureaucrat who spent more money than anyone ever to get Trump elected, unbridled power over the government to the point that if you told me Elon Musk was a president for the first 5 months of last year, I might have believed you. At one point, most government workers were being ordered to send Elon Musk work update emails each week. People who handle classified information were like, do I send him email updates too? If we look at lobbying hasn't gone anywhere. You see here how corporate lobbying spending was on a decline until it hit an inflection point in 2016 when Trump entered office, where it continued to rise through Biden's term and is projected to have set far and away records in 2025. The career politicians that we were told would be ousted just became Trump's yes men. The point I'm making here is that we should never blindly trust anyone in power or with power over us. We have to watch them and hold them accountable because they are human, and it's human nature to abuse power, no matter what your political party is. And speaking of the human tendency to abuse power, we need to talk about the way the government is abusing their power right now without any accountability. First, some quick definitions to keep in mind, straight from Google itself. Authoritarianism is the enforcement or advocacy of strict obedience to authority at the expense of personal freedom. Fascism is a far-right authoritarian and ultranationalist political ideology characterized by a dictatorial leader, a centralized autocracy, militarism, and the forcible suppression of opposition. Emerging in 20th century Europe, it emphasizes national rebirth, extreme nationalism, and often racism, viewing the nation as a single, unified bundle controlled by the state. Those aren't my opinions, those are just straight definitions. Here's some more information. Again, not my opinion. The Fourth Amendment, supposedly your Fourth Amendment, reads the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. In practice, that means that the government and individual agents of the government can't just come into your home unless they have evidence of a crime and a warrant signed by a judge. Your Fourth Amendment right was written into the Constitution because American colonists, back before they gained their independence, hated the fact that British customs officials, often called the King's Men, had these general warrants called writs of assistance that allowed them to enter anyone's homes or businesses as they pleased to look for smuggled goods. If you like your right to privacy and the government not being able to enter your home as they please, you have the Fourth Amendment to thank for that. Now let's revisit the First Amendment. That reads, in part, Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech, or the right of people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. This gives us the right to do and say as we please, as long as we aren't hurting anybody or committing a crime. That's the most basic idea of freedom. Now, the murder of Alex Preddy by ICE is the clearest example of the direction that the government is pushing in. A few days ago, on January 24th, ICE agents shot and killed a 37-year-old U.S. citizen in Minneapolis, Alex Preddy. He was an ICU nurse at the Minneapolis VA hospital. He cared for veterans. He was out that morning because he cared about what was happening in his city. He'd been going to protests after federal agents killed another Minneapolis resident, Renee, just over 2 weeks ago. Here's an incident from multiple angles, so consider this a trigger warning. So first you have this Border Patrol agent chasing after and unnecessarily shoving multiple women. The second one here, forcibly to the ground. Preddy steps between the agent and the woman while he was filming on his phone to help her up and make sure she's okay. You can clearly see he is simply looking after another member of his community who was just assaulted by an ICE agent before the agent reaches around to pepper spray him directly in the face. More agents swarm and tackle him to the ground while he's disoriented, and they're all sort of slipping on ice. As multiple agents restrain him on the ground, one is literally pistol whipping him in the head, and then another one reaches around Preddy's waist to take his gun before exiting the pile. Then, as soon as he's unarmed, an officer begins to shoot him. Multiple officers shot at him, and they shot him about 10 times in 5 seconds, with almost half of those shots being fired while Preddy was already lying motionless on the ground. One officer was literally clapping while the other officers were still shooting at his lifeless body. That tells you how safe and secure they felt, that they were able to clap with righteous indignation as they shot an American citizen to death in broad daylight on a Minneapolis street. This was a public execution if I've ever seen one. Preddy was a law-abiding citizen, a human being. He posed no threat. The government later posted a photo of his gun, but as you can see in the video, he never reached for his weapon at all, and he had a legal permit to carry in an open carry state. The agents who killed him were not in danger when they pulled the trigger, but within hours of Preddy's death, as if we don't have eyes, this is what Kristi Noem, the DHS secretary, and Greg Bovino, the head of Border Patrol, the government, said in response.
The White House has labeled the man who was killed in Minnesota as a domestic terrorist. Is that something you agree with? And have you seen any evidence to
when you
back up that
perpetuate
claim?
violence against a government because of ideological reasons and for reasons to resist and perpetuate violence, that is the definition of domestic terrorism. This individual who came with weapons and ammunition to stop a law enforcement operation of federal law enforcement officers committed an act of domestic terrorism. That's the facts.
When the agent took the gun away, that happened before Preddy was shot. Why was an unarmed man shot multiple times by law enforcement, by your Border Patrol agents?
Dana, you don't know he was unarmed. I don't know he was unarmed. That's freeze frame adjudication of a crime scene via a photo. That's why we have investigators. That's why we have an investigation that is going to answer those questions. We're not going to adjudicate that here on TV in one freeze frame there.
Okay, it's not a freeze frame. We're showing a video of one of your agents taking the gun away, and that happened before Preddy was shot.
We don't know that agent was taking any gun away. That could have been the agent's, because we don't know that. The facts are going to come to light.
So you're disputing the video, that that's what happened?
With an investigation. That's why we investigate.
Well, with respect, you say that's why we investigate, but you're also drawing other conclusions that sort of fly in the face of waiting for an investigation. You said yesterday that this looks like a situation where the individual wanted to do maximum damage and massacre law enforcement. What evidence do you have that he wanted to massacre law enforcement? Because it doesn't look anything like he's trying to massacre law enforcement. In fact, he was filming, and then it looked like he was trying to help another individual there who was pushed down by law enforcement, and then they went after him.
In fact, I believe that the fantastic training that our law enforcement partners have, the fact that they're highly trained, prevented any specific shootings of law enforcement. So good job for our law enforcement in taking him down before he was able to do that.
With respect, it feels as though in some ways you're blaming the victim here.
The victims are the Border Patrol agents. I'm not blaming the Border Patrol agents. The victim are the Border Patrol agents. The suspect put himself in that situation. The victims are the Border Patrol agents there.
So as you can see, nothing they're saying is supported by the actual video. Again, that they know we are all able to see with our own eyes. They're telling you not to believe what you can plainly see because we have to wait for an investigation. But in the same exact breath, they have no problem stating with absolute authority that this law-abiding gun owner was coming to massacre the real victims, ICE and Border Patrol agents who were walking around shoving women to the ground, macing anyone they possibly could for no reason, pistol whipping this guy in the head, shooting him after disarming him, and clapping while the final shots rang out. Those are the real victims. Instead of simply holding the agents accountable, the government is placing the fault on the citizen.
Very, very unfortunate incident. I don't like that he had a gun. I don't like that he had 2 fully loaded magazines. That's a lot of bad stuff. And despite that, I say that's a very unfortunate incident.
So if the government can lie straight to our faces about what we can literally see and call him a terrorist, what else could they, the government, be lying to us about?
You guys should all be very grateful that we have the most transparent administration in history.
And as I mentioned earlier, this wasn't an isolated event. This was the third shooting by federal agents in that same city in only 2.5 weeks. On January 7th, ICE agent Jonathan Ross shot and killed Renee Good. She was a 37-year-old mother of 3 and a U.S. citizen who had just dropped off her 6-year-old son at school that morning. Renee was in her car, stopped sideways in the street. You can see from this footage taken on the ICE agent's personal cell phone that she wasn't posturing or threatening them in any way.
That's fine, dude. I'm not mad at you. Show your face. I'm not mad at you.
That's okay. We don't change our plates every morning, just so you know. It'll be the same plate when you come talk to us later.
Whether you agree with her being there or not, ICE does not have any general police power over citizens. They can arrest citizens for assaulting, obstructing, or interfering with ICE operations. But we can see that she was pulling forward to get out of the way when another car zoomed past her, so she stopped to let the other cars go around her, and even waved at the cars of the lane that she was impeding to go around her, including the car of the ICE agents who were in their car, not in the middle of any active immigration enforcement operations. When an ICE agent then stormed up to her car and started violating her Fourth Amendment rights, trying to open her door and force her out of the car.
No!
So, while she tries to escape the first ICE agent, Jonathan Ross, who was circling her car filming her, which is not part of his professional duties, positions himself in front of the car, then shoots her 3 times in the head. And even with the most generous reading of this situation, a fair person would say that even if the first shot was taken in the midst of confusion and a gray area of self-defense, which could be disputed, what's not up for debate is that he was in no further danger as he kept shooting her 2 more times. And in case you want to know what his mindset was when he shot her, this is what he said immediately after he shot her while her car was still in motion and a potential danger to other civilians.
Whoa!
Fucking bitch. And the first guy who stormed up to her car attempting to yank her out seems to have some sense of guilt or shame, as his immediate reaction was to dart away while pulling up his mask, making sure that he concealed his identity. The point is, this situation was unnecessarily instigated and escalated by these trigger-happy federal agents who are violating a citizen's rights. Trump and Kristi Noem, aka the government, immediately said Renee tried to use her vehicle to kill or harm ICE agents, when you can see pretty clearly in the video that she was just scared and trying to get away, not acting with malicious intent. The federal government even shut down any investigation into the incident, and when the state government tried to get evidence from the federal government to open an investigation, J.D. Vance said straight up that their federal agents have absolute immunity.
Why shouldn't the Minnesota officials on the ground have access and evidence to work on this investigation?
The precedent here is very simple. You have a federal law enforcement official engaging in federal law enforcement action. That's a federal issue. That guy is protected by absolute immunity. He was doing his job.
And although the vice president tried to walk it back a couple weeks later after the Alex Preddy shooting, the fact is the federal government has not only refused to investigate the shootings themselves, but they have also, as J.D. Vance suggested, withheld information from the state to prevent the state from doing their own investigations. And regarding the mass federal agents who killed Preddy,
from what I understand, there were 2 agents who fired shots. Are they both working right now, or are they on administrative leave?
All agents that were involved in that scene are working, not in Minneapolis, but in other locations. That's for their safety. There's this thing called doxing, and the safety of our employees is very important to us. So we're going to keep those employees safe.
So they get to stay on the streets, masked up, armed with deadly weapons, while avoiding any public accountability for assaulting or shooting citizens because their safety is paramount. But let's zoom out from these 2 situations. This is a pattern emerging from a broader program, and it's escalating. Here's what really shows you the mentality of these agents, what this is really about. In the days right after Renee Good's shooting in Minneapolis, multiple citizen observers, again, exercising their First Amendment rights, caught ICE and Border Patrol agents on video saying this.
Shame on you.
Listen, have y'all not learned from the past couple of days? Have you not learned?
Learned what? What's our lesson here? What do you want us to learn?
Following federal agents.
Give me my phone back. No, you can't
agents.
take my phone.
This is your warning. This is your warning.
For what?
Stop fucking following us. You are impeding operations.
So let people go to church.
You did not learn from what just happened?
Think about that phrasing. Have you not learned your lesson yet? Referencing a federal agent killing a citizen days earlier. That's not law enforcement language.
I will tell you this. You raise your voice, I raise your voice.
If I raise my voice, you'll erase my...
Exactly, yeah. Yeah.
Are you serious? You said if I raise my voice, you'll erase my voice?
Yes.
That's mob language. That's the language of intimidation. Those are very thinly veiled threats of violence by agents of the government against peaceful law-abiding citizens for engaging in lawful activity that the government doesn't like. The translation is, we kill someone, and if you keep protesting, if you keep filming us, if you keep questioning us, if you keep trying to hold us accountable to the law, you might be next. Have you not learned your lesson? This is what the head of Border Patrol, Greg Bavino, said right after the death of Alex Preddy.
When politicians, community leaders, and some journalists engage in that heated rhetoric we keep talking about, when they make the choice to vilify law enforcement, calling law enforcement names like Gestapo, or using the term kidnapping, that is a choice, and there are always actions that result from our choices.
These fear tactics all align with one thing. The government, from the top down, is trying to create an atmosphere where Americans are too terrified to exercise their constitutional rights, too scared to protest, too scared to film, too scared to help their neighbors. And even if you're somebody who believes we've needed stronger immigration enforcement, this isn't that. This isn't an upstanding police force just doing their job and fulfilling their duty. These agents are masked. They are in plain clothes. You can't even readily verify if they're actually ICE officers or just criminals dressed up as some, which, by the way, is already happening. People are posing as ICE agents to commit violent assaults and robberies. When federal agents are indistinguishable from criminals, when they are unidentifiable, when they can kill citizens in broad daylight and remain anonymous with no legal mechanisms of accountability, and the government is telling you that they are protected by absolute immunity, they aren't any different than a countrywide criminal gang. ICE is breaking into people's homes without judicial warrants in clear violation of the Fourth Amendment. In fact, it was leaked by a whistleblower only a week or so ago that this has been a secret official policy within ICE and Border Patrol since at least May. So it's no surprise that there have been so many examples of U.S. citizens' homes being broken into even before this recent Minnesota situation. U.S. citizens are being kidnapped off the street into minivans and dumped wherever once they are found to be citizens, having only been stopped because of their race or accent. There are endless videos of ICE assaulting citizens and peaceful protesters. So many that a judge literally had to order ICE to stop assaulting people. Think about that. A judge had to issue an order telling federal law enforcement officers to stop assaulting American citizens exercising their First Amendment rights. That's how bad it's gotten. And it gets worse because all of this racial profiling, the stops based on appearance, the show me your papers, was essentially legalized by Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh. In September, Kavanaugh issued a ruling that basically said ICE agents can stop and detain people based on their apparent ethnicity or whether they have an accent. Meaning ICE can stop people that they feel don't look or sound American. But let's be clear about what that apparent ethnicity means in practice. The Supreme Court essentially gave officers the green light to detain people based on not being white. Even immigrants who came in the right way and worked their way to becoming legal citizens are having to deal with the constant fear of being detained or harassed, like this U.S. citizen who was detained outside of his home in front of his 5-year-old daughter.
You know what, sir? Now, talking to you, hearing that you have an accent, I have reason to believe that you are not born of this country.
So you just made an accent?
What country are you from?
You have an accent too.
Where were you born, sir?
Where were you born at?
Put your hands behind your back.
Monero, who was born in Mexico and obtained a U.S. passport in 2021, was detained in front of his 5-year-old daughter.
Well, she was shaking when I got in the home, and she's like, "Are you okay? That we're gonna take you? I don't want to lose you." And I'm like, "You're not gonna lose me." Even though I'm a citizen, I'm still feel afraid because they don't care if you're a citizen or not. I know I can be a target because that's who are they targeting just because our appearance and because of our accent.
Papers, please, is effectively becoming official U.S. policy. That's what we associate with authoritarian regimes, and that's where we are now. Before Kavanaugh's ruling, courts had ruled that agents can't stop someone just because they look like an immigrant. A few months later, Kavanaugh tried to walk it back, writing in a footnote for an unrelated case that officers must not make immigration stops based on race or ethnicity. But the damage is already done. The agents are already operating under his original guidance, which is sort of what they were already doing anyway, even before Kavanaugh's ruling. So all of this has been slowly escalating, but you need to understand the trajectory. ICE's funding is exploding. They went from an $8.7 billion yearly budget to $27.7 billion. That's more funding than most countries' militaries. And they're trying to hire 10,000 new agents by the end of 2026, offering $50,000 signing bonuses and student loan repayment. But to meet these recruitment targets, they've lowered hiring standards. A journalist reported that she was hired after a 10-minute meeting without ever submitting any of the requested paperwork. No background check, no identification, nothing. Also, these agents have insufficient training. They only have to go through 47 days of training, in some weird nod to Trump being the 47th president. So they're being rushed through to meet quotas, then they're sent into American cities with guns, wearing masks, and apparently with absolute immunity. But it's not just the training that's bad, it's who they're recruiting and how. The Department of Homeland Security has been running a massive social media campaign filled with white nationalists and neo-Nazi propaganda. When Trump first re-entered office, it sort of started out in not so subtle ways with posts from the DHS and official White House social media accounts like illegal alien deportation ASMR and AI-powered anti-immigrant cartoon propaganda. Things that, if you pointed them out to the average person who's not really into politics, they would basically feel like all of your concern was overblown. even if they would agree that the messaging was distasteful. But as time goes on, their messaging has been, let's say, coming into focus.
Last night or yesterday, they posted this very bizarre thing. It's like a little picture of a sled dogs in Greenland, and one way is America, the other way is China and Russia, and the caption is, "Which way, Greenland man?" And there's no way you're like looking at this, and unless you follow neo-Nazis, and you would look at that and be like, wait, what is that's a weird formulation. Who would say that? And the reason is because somebody who is there has read the book Which Way, Western Man, which is a neo-Nazi tract. This was written in 1978 by this white supremacist who posited that the Jews control everything and Hitler was right, and it was a whole plot against white people. Somebody who knows that is running the White House Twitter feed. These are the people who are going to run the Republican Party for the next decade, because they are not just guys in their basements. They have government jobs. They're part of the party apparatus now.
This was the most striking one for me, was when I think the quote is, "We'll have our home again," right? Which is not a very common way of phrasing anything, right? Nobody accidentally stumbles across the phrase, "We'll have our home again." So what is "We'll have our home again"? It is explicitly a lyric from a song about being sort of outnumbered by foreigners in your own country who you are going to expel. That is exclusively beloved
by blood
by
or
neo-Nazi
sweat
and white supremacist groups, right?
The Department of Labor published a tweet with "One homeland, one people, one heritage. Remember who you are, American." I'm sorry, that worked better in the original German.
I just want to point out that this is the original German poster he's referring to. This translates to one people, one nation, one leader, and you don't really have to squint to see the resemblance.
You almost can't talk about these things with people who aren't paying attention to them. You have to actively sane wash the stuff that the administration is doing while you speak to normal people in your life, just to not get written off yourself as crazy.
Not only do you sound crazy, but the government that, as we saw before, never lies, will send their spokespeople out to dismiss anyone who sees what they're doing and calls it out, telling us to get a grip, and that this line of attack is boring and tired, and that they won't apologize for posting banger memes. You can see how they weaponize plausible deniability. They use coded language most people won't recognize, but white nationalists absolutely will. And when confronted, they can say, "What? You're being hysterical. Another leftist lunatic." But the people who know, and those are the people that they're recruiting. DHS is spending millions of dollars on ads using this propaganda on Google and social media platforms. They're building an ideologically aligned force that sees itself as defending white Christian America against invasion. And all the while, again, the intense polarization is what allows them to hide in plain sight. Take Stephen Miller, for example, one of Trump's top advisors.
Stephen Miller's at the top of the totem pole. I mean, I think he sort of indirectly already has that job. You understand? Because he has a lot to say about a lot of things. He's a very valued person.
This was Stephen Miller back in September after Charlie Kirk was assassinated.
The left calls people enemies of the Republic, calls them fascists, says they're Nazis, says they're evil, says they have to be removed, and then prints their addresses. What do you think they're trying to do? They are trying to inspire someone to murder them. That is their objective. That is their intent.
First, I'll say where I agree with him. Provocative language and incendiary accusations can stoke fear and violence.
The Democrat Party is an entity devoted exclusively to the defense of hardened criminals, gangbangers, and illegal alien killers and terrorists. It is a domestic extremist organization.
Oh, and I also think doxing fellow citizens is also bad, and I believe, depending on the situation, it can be a crime. But what Stephen Miller is trying to do here is hide behind our polarized political environment to distract and disorient us. He wants to get you to believe that anyone calling out any clear Nazi or fascist themes, like what we just saw the government itself is publishing under his watch, is actually trying to incite violence. He would rather you and I believe that there can be no objective criticism of what the government is doing. And if you get in the government's way while protesting their actions, well, now you too are what Stephen Miller would call a domestic terrorist, just like Alex Preddy. It almost seems that from Miller's point of view, only the government gets to decide what's right from what's wrong, and no one can rightfully call their actions out or criticize them
because we stand for what is good, what is virtuous, what is noble. And to those trying to incite violence against us, those trying to foment hatred against us, what do you have? You have nothing. You are nothing. You are wickedness, you are jealousy, you are envy, you are hatred. You are nothing. You can build nothing. You can produce nothing. You can create nothing. We are the ones who build. We are the ones who create. We are the ones who lift up humanity. You cannot defeat us. You cannot slow us. You cannot stop us. You cannot deter us. We will prevail over the forces of wickedness and evil. They cannot imagine what they have awakened. They cannot conceive of the army that they have arisen in all of us.
Dr. Evil, is that you?
But for Stephen Miller's sake, I want to be as objective and fair as possible. So let's revisit those definitions from earlier. Authoritarianism is strict obedience to authority at the expense of personal freedom. Fascism consists of a dictatorial leader, centralized autocracy, militarism, and forcible suppression of opposition. Let's see what we have thus far. Dictatorial leader who says only his own morals can put him in check. Centralized power with absolute immunity claimed for federal agents. Military occupation of American cities with 3,000 agents in Minneapolis alone, and Trump telegraphing hopes and dreams of invoking the Insurrection Act to enact martial law. Forcible suppression of opposition, literally killing protesters. Mass federal agents operating without accountability. Racial profiling legalized by the Supreme Court. Constitutional rights suspended for entire populations. White nationalist recruitment using neo-Nazi propaganda. Government lying about killings to justify more violence. Intimidation campaigns against citizens exercising their rights. What's the saying? If the shoe fits? We are living in an increasingly authoritarian state by all objective measures. And I'm not saying that to be partisan or extremist. These are the facts. And to all my conservative friends and family, if you think you're on the opposite end of the political spectrum from the people being targeted, fine. But don't let that blind you to what comes with authoritarianism. You might agree with the government today, but once they have enough power, they're not going to care about answering to you or anyone else. You might think that your freedom hasn't been threatened because you haven't been impacted yet, but that's only because you haven't stepped out of line yet. Is that real freedom when the only actions that you're allowed to take are what the government says you can? They started with immigrants because that's how it always goes. But Alex Preddy was a U.S. citizen. Renee Good was a U.S. citizen. The family who was just trying to drive through a neighborhood to get home when ICE busted in their windows and tossed a smoke bomb into their car with their children sitting in the back seat, including a 6-month-old baby who was hospitalized, they were U.S. citizens.
Yes, the ambulance is bringing my newborn out the house because he can't breathe. How long? 6 months. And the fucking officer, I told him I was trying to leave. He said, it was,
The officer knew you were trying to leave?
yes, the officer knew I was trying to leave.
The ICE officer?
Yes. He literally called us trying to leave.
Yeah.
They 3 flashbangs at my car.
Your rights don't disappear all at once. They disappear gradually through violations that each seem justifiable in that moment, until one day you realize that they're gone and there's nothing you can do about it. This is how it happens. This is what history shows. This is a test. And Trump has joked multiple times that the midterm elections should be canceled.
Yeah, we have to even run against these people. Now, I won't say cancel the election. They should cancel the election because the fake news will say, he wants the elections canceled. He's a dictator. They always call me a dictator.
Giving everything I just laid out, the infrastructure being built.
You're damn right. We're going to have ICE surround the polls come November.
The immunity that these agents claim, the white nationalist recruitment, the willingness to kill American citizens. Does that still sound like a joke to you? But no matter what happens, you know who the government will still be in cahoots with, whether we continue on this trajectory or not? The same people that they're actually in cahoots with now, the elites. Because authoritarianism is not just about control for control's sake. People don't just seek out power for no reason. It's about who benefits when that control is established. And the people who benefit are never the people being controlled. The people who benefit will be the ultra-wealthy as they have a mutually symbiotic relationship with the government. For instance, All the major AI companies, including Elon's XAI, have contracts with the government. Whatever surveillance and or weapon systems the government is developing can be used as it pleases. And if they deem enough lawfully abiding citizens protesting the status quo domestic terrorists for just not doing what the government thinks is in their best interest, they won't just be using those tools for foreign wars. Here's tech billionaire Larry Ellison, a close Trump ally and the fourth or fifth richest person in the world, showing you how billionaires are thinking about leveraging AI.
Your body cams will be transmitting that. The police will be on their best behavior because we're constantly recording, watching and recording everything that's going on. Citizens will be on their best behavior because we're constantly recording and reporting everything that's going on.
Tell us a bit about what it means for what government should do in terms of its digital infrastructure, digital ID, data centers, and so on.
The first thing a country needs to do is to unify all of their data so it can be consumed and used by the AI model. You have to take all of your healthcare data, your diagnostic data, your electronic health records, your genomic data. We have to take all of this data we have in our country and move it into a single, if you will, unified data platform. So we provide context. When we want to ask a question, we've provided that AI model with all the data they need to understand our country.
This is the same guy who bought control of Paramount last year, which is the media conglomerate that oversees CBS and other major networks, in case you were keeping up with that drama. Apparently, Ellison's son, David, who is also a billionaire, even promised the Trump administration that he would implement sweeping changes to CNN if the Ellisons are able to successfully acquire Warner Brothers as well. Now, this mass media takeover by a close ally of the president would be concerning if it just stopped there, but it doesn't stop there. Larry Ellison also led the group that just bought TikTok this past week, a move that Trump allies like Benjamin Netanyahu have been open about using as direct leverage to sway the public.
We have to secure that part of the base of our support in the United States. That is being challenged systematically. A lot of this is done with money. We have to fight back. How do we fight back? We're going to have to use the tools of battle. And the most important ones are in social media. And the most important purchase that is going on right now is TikTok. TikTok, number one. And I hope it goes through because it can be consequential.
So given Ellison's "you scratch my back, I scratch yours" relationship with this administration, I hope you can see how this ties into the overall program that's happening, how this is not a left versus right issue. It's about power and control. The government and billionaires are working in concert, gaining more control over the public through multiple levers. Palantir and other surveillance companies are contracting with the US government, while tech companies are trying to figure out how to replace as many workers as they can with AI and robots. The government itself has shown that they are absolutely fine with using AI in their propaganda, setting a terrible precedent. And this is all happening while we slowly lose our collective ability to tell what's real. As a public, we are up against a lot right now, and more than many of us realize. Hopefully this video helps you see the connection between the rising fascism, media, and social media monopolization, AI power, misinformation, and labor crises, and growing wealth inequality. I don't point out these issues to be alarmist. I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but people always think that things will be okay until they aren't. And that would be ignoring history. We aren't better humans than any other time in history. We aren't special. We aren't exempt from the patterns that have played out over and over again throughout human civilization. And given the current technology we have, AI, surveillance, drones, the results could look a lot different. Now let's talk about what we can actually do about any of this. First, we need to burst people's bubbles. So much of what I just showed you, most people have no idea about. We all walk around assuming that our friends and family, the people that we interact with the most, sort of see and hear about the same things, and that we have relatively similar information environments. But that is not the case. The algorithms that control our information flows don't work that way. They show us hyper-personalized views of the world, keeping us in very individualized bubbles. For instance, my videos aren't going to reach people who need to see them the most. They just aren't going to show up in their feeds. They're going to reach people who are already interested in politics or people who hate watch content like mine. So you watching this, you actually have to be the person to burst people's information bubbles that are in your sphere of influence. That type of sharing is the only way that we can get necessary information to people who might not otherwise have access to it. People whose algorithms won't show them this. People who might not be interested in politics, but whose lives are being affected by it, whether they realize it or not. If you care about the future we're heading towards, you have to share information. If you care about the information environment online and people not knowing what's real, that's affected by all this politics. And people need to understand what's happening and why, so that we can all, as a society, hold on to the rails while we try to stay upright while AI misinformation, disinformation, deepfakes, propaganda, and political persuasion start running rampant. In order for us to stay upright through it all, in any capacity, that requires as many people as possible understanding what's happening in the world and why. Even if you're not thinking about it every single day, even if you're not keeping up with the news at an unhealthy level, even if you're just staying tuned in as much as you have the capacity to, we just need more people to understand generally what's going on, or else we'll be easily manipulated. And the people who have the power to steer our attention and our understanding of things will be the people who control us and benefit at our expense. Think of it like helping everyone get inoculated, vaccinated, if you will, against mass media manipulation so that we can develop herd immunity to it. So whenever you come across a bit of antidote online, don't be selfish. Share it with those closest to you, because they'll actually watch something that you send them directly because they trust you. And just keep sending them things, but be strategic with what you send them. Personally, I wish there were more nonpartisan, authentic creators who understood how to best communicate with people that don't already think like them, and why that's so important in such a polarized time with stakes as high as these. But I also understand that everyone has their role, and there are a lot of niches to fill. Just try to focus on sending non-inflammatory or partisan sounding content from honest, detailed, thorough creators. Some things will stick, and that could cause a domino effect, but that can only happen if you care enough. So here's what you can actually do. 1. Share this video. Share any video that helps people understand what's happening. Send it directly to people. Do not just post it and hope that the algorithm does the work. It won't. You have to be intentional. 2. Talk to people in your life. I know it's uncomfortable. I know it's easier to avoid politics at family dinners, but we're past that point. Start conversations, ask questions, help people think critically about what they're seeing. 3. Support independent journalism and creators who are doing the work. The mainstream media has shown us that they're not equipped for this moment. Find people telling the truth and support them however you can. 4. Document everything. If you see ICE in your community, film them without obstructing or engaging with them. Know your rights. The ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union, has resources on what to do when you encounter ICE. Share those resources. 5. Get involved locally. Show up to city council meetings, understand what your local officials are doing about federal overreach. Pressure them to protect your community. This is something I'm also trying to push myself to start doing more because it does not come naturally. 6. Prepare for the midterms, if we have them. Register to vote. Register to vote, register your friends, make a plan. Do not let anyone tell you that it doesn't matter anyway. Many people felt that same way in 2024, and look where we are. 7. Build community. You are easy to target when you are alone. Connect with your neighbors. Build networks of people who will look out for each other, because when things get worse, and they might, we're going to need each other. Now, if all that feels like it's just too much for you to do right now, that's fine. The least you could do is just be an information domino. Be the person who causes that chain reaction in your circle, because I promise you, there are people in your life right now who have no idea any of this is happening, and they deserve to know. Last thing, I know this video has been heavy. I know it's a lot to process, but I need you to understand, I'm not making this video to demoralize you. I'm making it because I still believe that we can turn this around. We've seen throughout history that every movement towards fascism eventually meets resistance. It's not inevitable that we go down this path, but it's also not inevitable that we don't. The difference is us. So be a domino.